Immediately, 2 or 3 weeks later, he says, you know what, Debbie? No, she's pregnant. Denise Huxtable is not pregnant. Lisa Bonet is pregnant.
It was the show that redefined Black culture on TV and then tore itself apart from the inside. One of its biggest stars was secretly forced out. Friendships shattered. Careers were gambled and lost. And what happened to the cast afterward will shock you. This isn't the story they told you. This is what really happened to the cast of A Different World, the star who was pushed out.
I'd say that I still consider them good friends, but I haven't really talked to anyone. Actually, I ran into Tempest not so long ago, but...
Yeah.
When A Different World premiered in 1987, it was seen as television gold. Spinning off from The Cosby Show, it had the benefit of an audience already in love with the world it came from. And at its center was a familiar, beloved face. She wasn't just the lead actress. She was the reason many tuned in on that very first night. She was the anchor, the name, the credibility. For fans, she was the safe pair of hands guiding the show into their living rooms. But what the audience didn't see behind the glossy opening credits was the unease building on set. Television is a business, as much as it is art, and backroom. Decisions can sometimes shape the course of a series more than the talent we see on screen. From the beginning, there was a question hovering over the production. Would the show succeed on its own, or would it forever live in the shadow of the Cosby Show? For the actress leading the series, this was both an opportunity and a burden. She carried not only her own reputation, but also the expectation that this show would thrive because she was at the center. It's a position that sounds flattering, but it can breed tension. Some producers and writers began to wonder if they could tell the stories they wanted, while the identity of the show was so closely tied to one individual. As the first season progressed, these cracks widened. Behind the laughter and the applause tracks, creative disagreements began to intensify. Producers were eager to depict a new kind of college experience, grittier, more reflective of real life for young African-American students at a historically Black college. But the lead actress, with her own instincts and star power, sometimes clashed with those ambitions. It wasn't malicious. In many ways, she cared deeply about the direction of the show. But as is so often the case in Hollywood, caring too much and holding on too tightly can be seen as a threat rather than a gift. The turning point came quickly. Ratings were strong, but whispers grew louder that the show needed a new identity to survive. Executives wanted a shift, something bolder, fresher, and less weighed down by association with its parent show. And for them, that meant letting go of the very actress who had delivered the audience in the first place. For her, the news was devastating. Imagine giving yourself fully to something, pouring your energy, your commitment, believing you're at the center of something remarkable, only to be told you are no longer needed. It was not just a professional setback. It was personal, humiliating, and deeply hurtful. This was someone who had become a household name, someone who carried herself with pride. And now she was watching the curtain fall before she had even had a fair chance to show what she could truly bring. And then it was over. Not with a scandal or a farewell episode, but quietly, in that clinical way Hollywood so often handles its most painful changes. She was written out. Audiences at home tuned in for the second season, expecting to see the same familiar face leading their favorite new show. Instead, she was gone, without explanation, without closure. Fans wondered. Letters were written, speculation ran wild, and yet the machine moved on. But the cost of her departure was enormous. For the actress herself, it left a scar. Though she went on to other projects, those who followed her career know how much this moment shifted her trajectory. She had once been positioned at the very center of television history, and in the blink of an eye, that path was redirected. For many fans, it felt like a tragedy, not in the tabloid sense, but in the way only television lovers can feel when something familiar is taken from them too soon. For the show, however, the decision created opportunity. Without its supposed anchor, A Different World became something freer, sharper, and in some ways more authentic to its setting. It zeroed in on the college experience, allowed a broader set of characters to shine, and began tackling issues that other sitcoms of the era wouldn't dare touch. Ironically, it was in losing its biggest name that the show began to earn its truest voice. But that doesn't erase the pain of what happened. The actress who gave the series its launch deserved more than to be quietly shuffled aside. Fans from that era still talk about it. They remember the abrupt disappearance, the sense of disorientation, and the knowledge that behind the glitz of television, there are often power struggles that have nothing to do with talent. For viewers who grew up with this star who laughed with her week after week, her removal from A Different World felt like betrayal. People don't just fall in love with shows, they fall in love with the individuals who bring them to life. And when those people are taken from us without warning, it feels like a friend has simply walked out the door, never to return. Decades later, the story of her departure still fascinates. It remains a reminder that even the brightest stars can be eclipsed by the forces of production, by decisions that value control over loyalty, strategy over heart. Looking back now, we can appreciate all that she gave the show in its earliest days, while also understanding how pivotal her leaving was in shaping what the series became. But make no mistake, the actress at the center was more than just a stepping stone for the series. She was, for a time, the heart of A Different World. And though the story continued without her, the shadow of how she was pushed out lingers as one of television's most poignant what-ifs. The casualty of a new vision.
He said, "Thank you for being my friend."
Thank you for being my friend.
Because we were really tight. We were going together.
When people think of A Different World, what often comes to mind is the energy, the music, the sense of pride and belonging that Hillman College gave its audience. But hidden beneath the success story was another tale, one of opportunities given and taken away. And at the heart of that story was Marisa Tomei, a fresh-faced young actress who became an early casualty of the show's evolving vision. To understand how this happened, we have to step back to the very beginning. Long before the show was directly tied to The Cosby Show and Denise Huxtable, the early idea was something quite different. The original concept wasn't about Denise at all. It was about a white freshman navigating life at a historically black college. Writers thought this premise would highlight the unique cultural clashes and discoveries that could come from such a situation. That seed of an idea stayed in the background even after Denise Huxtable was installed as the focal point. And so, when the series was given its green light, the producers created Maggie Lawton, Denise's quirky, good-natured white roommate, meant to carry that thread of contrast. Landing the role of Maggie could have changed any young actress's career. In fact, it almost went to another familiar face. The part was first offered to Meg Ryan, who even at that time was balancing film roles and beginning her rise. She ultimately chose film instead, a decision that shaped her trajectory toward romantic comedies and box office success. That opened the door to Marisa Tomei, who stepped into Maggie's shoes and quickly made the character her own. For Tomei, fresh out of school and still earning her place in Hollywood, this was a breakthrough moment. When Debbie Allen joined the series as producer and guiding hand, she immediately saw the potential in Maggie. Allen herself was a graduate of Howard University and remembered her own college days vividly. She knew a student like Maggie was not only realistic, Such students had attended historically black colleges, but also fertile ground for storytelling. Debbie even pitched thoughtful, sometimes controversial storylines. One would have brought Dwayne Wayne home for Thanksgiving dinner, only for his mother to grow upset that he introduced a white girl as his date. The point wasn't shock value. It was to examine prejudice from an unexpected angle. These kinds of plots would have made Maggie central to the conversation about race, identity, and belonging, giving the audience something few other sitcoms dared to explore in the late 1980s. And yet, as so often happens in television, plans unravel quickly. When Lisa Bonet, the star around whom the whole show had been built, was pushed out after the first season, Maggie's purpose began to dissolve. She was written as Denise's roommate, directly tied to Denise's presence on screen. Without Denise, Maggie suddenly drifted without anchor or storyline. And the show itself was changing. What started as a Cosby spin-off was transforming, under Debbie Allen's leadership, into something more powerful, a bold, culturally authentic portrayal of the lives of young black men and women at Hillman. In this new vision, Maggie no longer fit. She wasn't lost because of friction or because of poor performance, quite the opposite. Debbie Allen valued Marisa, liked her work, and wanted to see those storylines through. But storytelling has its limits. Each moment on screen had to count, and the writers decided the future of A Different World meant diving deep into a black student experience that was rich enough for a lifetime of stories. Maggie became, in effect, a casualty of progress, a reminder of a first draft that had now evolved into something else entirely. And so, when Lisa Bonet left, Marisa Tomei quietly exited too. There was no public falling out, no behind-the-scenes scandal, no bitterness from the cast. It was simply the reality of television refocused. Tomei, looking back, has said she remembers her time on the show fondly. She and Lisa Bonet were not just on-screen friends. They were close in life, even roommates off-camera. For Marisa, it remains a special chapter, one she recalls as fun, youthful, and transformative. Of course, not everything about the experience makes her smile. Tomei has often joked about the haircut she was forced to adopt for the show, a wavy, shag trimmed with bangs. It wasn't her decision, and when asked years later, she confessed that it felt unforgivable. But beyond a hairstyle, her short run on the series gave her a professional foothold and the confidence to pursue bigger opportunities that would eventually lead her to an Academy Award and a celebrated career in film. For fans of the show, her departure symbolized something larger. The moment A Different World fully stepped away from its original conception and moved toward a truer, more authentic representation of Hillman College life. Maggie Lawton will always be remembered as a kind-hearted symbol of that first draft, a character who could have explored thought-provoking stories, but was swept away by a series choosing to stand in its own power. And as for Hillman, the loss of both Lisa Bonet and Marisa Tomei at once left a hole that had to be filled quickly. The second season would need fresh faces, strong voices, and characters that could rebuild the show from the inside out. And those new stars, the ones who would rise to become household names, brought their own struggles, battles, and unforgettable stories to the mix. The comedian's lie.
Let me tell you what happened here. The company that promised us $15,000 got bought by another company that ain't gonna give us 15 cents.
When audiences first met Coach Walter Oakes on A Different World, he quickly became a fan favorite. Played by the up-and-coming comedian Sinbad, Walter was funny, warm, and often the voice of wisdom at Hillman College. But few viewers know just how unlikely his path to the show really was. Sinbad never auditioned to be an actor. He originally came to the studio hoping to land a job as the warm-up comic, the person who entertains the live audience between filming breaks. Producers, however, made one thing clear. Only people with experience would be considered. Sinbad had none. Instead of admitting this, he took a gamble. He lied. With confidence, he claimed to have worked as a warm-up comic for several popular shows. Everything seemed believable until he pushed his luck. He proudly announced that he had warmed up audiences for Magnum P.I. The problem? That show was filmed outdoors in Hawaii. It had no studio audience to entertain. His fib unraveled in seconds. The producers were furious and ready to send him out the door. For Sinbad, it looked like the dream was over before it even began. Then Bill Cosby stepped in. Where others saw a failed audition, Cosby saw potential. He overruled his team and insisted, "This man should be on TV." And just like that, Sinbad wasn't dismissed. He was cast. What began as a bluff turned into the biggest break of his career. Instead of warming up a crowd, Sinbad became part of television history, embodying a character who brought both laughter and heart to Hillman College. Jumping ship at the height of fame.
I'm embarrassed because I've been telling people I never did Shazam, and people always walking up on me, and I'm just going to tell you what happened.
By the early 1990s, A Different World was no longer just a spin-off. It was a statement piece, a show that had carved its own storylines and cultural mark, touching on issues that mainstream television often avoided. For the stars of Hillman College, it was a golden platform, one that could transform promising young actors into household names. But with fame often comes ambition, and two of the show's most beloved stars faced a gut-wrenching choice: stay safely inside a hit, or gamble everything on the promise of a solo shot at even bigger stardom. One of those stars was Sinbad. His character, Coach Walter Oakes, had risen from supporting role to breakout favorite. Audiences adored his humor, but also his warmth. He wasn't just comic relief. He was the kind of caring mentor figure people fondly remembered from their own school days. By season 4, Sinbad's popularity was undeniable. Hollywood came knocking, and he decided it was time to step out on his own. In 1993, the Sinbad show premiered on Fox. The network rolled out the red carpet, giving him a coveted Thursday night slot right after The Simpsons. For any performer, that was the dream. The kind of scheduling that could catapult a sitcom into a phenomenon. On paper, it seemed foolproof. Fans expected Coach Oakes' familiar warmth to delight in prime time. But television can be a brutal business. Despite Sinbad's charm and a loyal following, ratings didn't deliver what Fox wanted. After only 1 year, the show was canceled. What made the blow sting even more was the timing. Fox pulled the Sinbad show as part of a much larger and far more controversial purge. In 1994, the network abruptly canceled multiple shows starring mostly black casts. Among them was Rock, a critically acclaimed drama, and In Living Color, the groundbreaking sketch series that had launched the Wayans family. The move devastated black representation on primetime television. Reverend Jesse Jackson publicly called out Fox, accusing the network of institutional racism. He even urged a boycott. While Fox defended itself, citing ratings, the sheer number of shows with primarily black casts that were cut at the same time left many viewers unconvinced. For Sinbad, the dream of headlining his own series had ended not because he lacked talent, but because of forces far beyond his control. His leap of faith had been met with a wall, and a promising moment for black television had been shut down. Meanwhile, Dawn Lewis faced her own gamble. As Jaleesa Vinson, she had been with a different world since the first season. Her character, older, grounded, and fiercely independent, was central to the series' heartbeat. She played the responsible older sister when younger women needed guidance, a counterbalance to Whitley Gilbert's vanity or Freddie Brooks's eccentric energy. But Dawn was more than an actress on the show. She was part of its DNA. Alongside Bill Cosby and Stu Gardner, she co-wrote the series' iconic theme song, etching her voice into the opening notes that introduced every episode. After 5 celebrated seasons, Dawn felt the pull of new opportunity. In 1992, she left Hillman College behind for a starring role in Hangin' with Mr. Cooper. It seemed a golden chance, a new sitcom platform, fresh exposure, and the possibility to build on her momentum. But when Season 6 of A Different World aired, fans were blindsided. Jaleesa had just recently married Colonel Taylor, a storyline that gave her character stability and depth. Yet without warning, she was simply gone. No explanation, no farewell, no mention. Viewers who had followed her journey for years were left bewildered. And then came the cruelest part. Dawn's bet didn't pay off. After just 1 year on Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, producers shifted the show's direction and wrote her character out to make room for new cast members. What had looked like the bigger, brighter opportunity evaporated almost overnight. Both Sinbad and Dawn Lewis represent the painful reality of show business. Sometimes the leap away from the familiar is necessary. Ambition demands it. And yet, as their stories show, even the most talented actors can find themselves caught in the unpredictable storm of television politics, ratings wars, and shifting network priorities. For fans of A Different World, their departures marked the end of an era. Hillman College would go on, yes, but the warmth of Coach Oakes and the guidance of Jaleesa left holes that could never truly be filled. Their decisions remind us not only of the risks actors take, but also of just how fragile success in Hollywood can be. Where the world took them next.
Expect to see more of me soon, and don't freak out if you turn around, I'm standing right behind you. Sinbad, I can't believe you're here.
The doors of Hillman College eventually closed, but for the actors who walked its halls, the story was far from finished. Their journeys after A Different World were as varied and complex as the characters they played, marked by stunning triumphs, personal struggles, and lasting contributions to culture. For Lisa Bonet, the years following her departure were defined not by the chase for fame, but by a determination to live on her own terms. Rather than fighting to remain in the Hollywood spotlight, she stepped back. She focused on her personal life and on raising her daughter, Zoe Kravitz. Zoe, of course, would grow into a star herself, succeeding as an actress, musician, and fashion icon, proving that artistry ran in the family. Lisa did return to acting from time to time, but only when a role truly spoke to her, appearing in projects like Enemy of the State alongside Will Smith and the cult favorite High Fidelity with John Cusack. Later, her marriage to actor Jason Momoa brought more changes, including 2 more children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, before their eventual split. Today, Lisa Bonet is remembered as much for her refusal to play Hollywood's game as for her performances. She chose privacy, peace, and authenticity instead of endless publicity, making her journey away from Hillman perhaps the most graceful retreat. Marisa Tomei's path, on the other hand, was meteoric. Just a year after leaving A Different World, she starred in My Cousin Vinny, and with one unforgettable performance, she won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. That single victory instantly redefined her career. From there, she became both a respected dramatic actress and a darling of comedic film. She shone in Crazy, Stupid, Love, and impressed critics in The Wrestler. And more recently, she introduced herself to a new generation as the beloved Aunt May in Marvel's Spider-Man franchise. What began with a one-season role tied to Lisa, Bonet evolved into one of the most successful and enduring careers in Hollywood. For Marisa, Maggie Lauten may have been written out of Hillman, but Marisa Tomei was written into film history. Sinbad's journey was different again. Though the Sinbad show was cut short, he refused to fade away. The 1990s made him an icon, particularly for families, where his warm humor carried him through blockbuster films like First Kid and The Holiday. Hit Jingle All the Way. Simultaneously, he built a reputation as one of the most reliable stand-up comics in America, with his acclaimed HBO specials drawing millions. His larger-than-life personality became inseparable from the era itself. Yet his toughest battle came off stage. In 2020, Sinbad suffered a major ischemic stroke, leaving him with daunting challenges as he relearned basic mobility and speech. His comeback has been slow and painful, but in early 2024, fans got the moment they'd been praying for. Appearing via video call alongside his A Different World castmates during their HBCU college tour, Sinbad thanked fans for their unwavering love and support. With tears in his eyes, he reminded the world why Coach Oaks remains one of the sitcom's most cherished characters. Resilience, humor, and a heart that refuses to quit. Dawn Lewis's post-Hillman path has been steadier, yet no less remarkable. While she left the rotating chaos of primetime sitcoms, she found a home in the rich world of voice acting. For the past 3 decades, her voice has been a staple on American television, appearing in Futurama, The Simpsons, and Star Trek Lower Decks. Beyond performance, she has built a legacy of giving back. Through her nonprofit, the A New Day Foundation, Dawn has devoted herself to supporting underserved youth and communities, choosing to channel her artistry into mentorship and opportunity. In many ways, her career mirrors the wisdom of Jalisa, Vincent, steady, reliable, and always encouraging the next generation. Time has only proven how deeply A Different World touched its audience. Even in 2024, over 30 years after Hillman closed its campus to television viewers, the story continues. That year, Kadeem Hardison, Jasmine Guy, Cree Summer, Sinbad, and many others reunited for a tour of historically black colleges across the country. What began as a 10-city run sold out instantly, forcing more dates to be added. At each stop, fans, young and old, celebrated the show's legacy, the joy, the honesty, and the pride it inspired in generations of viewers. The cast's genuine affection for one another was unmistakable. The family they created on screen wasn't just rehearsed, it was real. The reasons these actors left A Different World are tangled up in ambition, conflict, and the ruthless unpredictability of show business. Some departures were painful, some heartbreaking, and some simply the collateral damage of reinvention. But in the end, those exits shaped a stronger show. The losses forced A Different World to evolve, to find its authentic voice and its enduring legacy. Out of those turbulent departures, a television legend was born, one that didn't just reflect a world but created a different world.